Hello everyone, welcome to our panel. So just like the Tower of Babel, where languages clash, we are seeing a similar situation on OTT, where cultures, languages, aspirations are just coming together. But unlike the biblical story, here it's not heading to a fragmentation, but to expansion. And platforms are looking forward to moving from the bustling urban cities to more smaller regional centers. Armed with content like Brahma Yugam, Sural, Lampan, and now even reality shows like MasterChef India, Indian Idol, or Naha, these platforms are looking to expand, these digital streaming platforms are looking to set their sights on the smaller towns and regional languages. According to Ormax Media's Audience Report 2023, the Indian OTT audience has only grown by 13.5% in 2023 as compared to 20% in 2022. Divya, I want to start with you. Now as the growth slows down, how important is regional content for these platforms?
Okay, hi everybody. I think everybody's hungry, so I'll try and speak less. See, I don't know why, first of all, it's called regional. In 2018, we launched Z5 with 12 languages saying apni bhasha mein feel hai, because we believe that every language deserves its own dignity and place. So first of all, we chose the word languages rather than calling it regional, just because we're a 70% Hindi dominant country doesn't mean other languages don't get that respect. That's part one. Of course, the fact remains, and I think it's a no-brainer, metros are saturated, overcrowded, already Netflix, Amazon, everybody fighting it out over there. So I think for the smaller platforms, it just made a huge sense to go local. I would call it local. Why would local audience not benefit from the best of the programming, right? Of course, the fact remains that is the local audience willing to pay as much as a metro audience is willing to pay? And that's the dichotomy that platforms get stuck with, which I have got stuck with at Z5 and then scaling up Alt Balaji when we were building up hinterland shows as well, right? Will the local audience pay? And yes, they pay. They pay. When they get quality content, they get good narratives, they get good stories, they pay. Of course, you have to make some compromises. Your production values may not be as elaborate, your stars may not be as big, and that's okay as long as the narrative is super, right? It makes a whole lot of sense to give good narratives, vast library of content for the local audience in their language. When they feel comfortable, they feel non-threatened by the content you offer, they engage. And we've seen that at Z5, we've seen that at Alt. So that's my 2 bits on it.
Anup, if you could add to that, how important is regional languages for OTT's expansion strategies?
No, hi, good afternoon. I'll just go with some numbers, and these are actually taken from the latest Ernst & Young report. So the number of hours content has been created, the number of hours of content that's been created in 2023 is around 200,000 hours. And that around 96% of the content is largely even now TV content, and 2% is OTT, another 2% is films. Now, in this 2%, that is 4,000 hours, that's approximately 3,000 hours of original content that was created. Now, in this 3,000 hours of original content, in 2023, the skew was 51% regional and the balance to Hindi. And it is estimated that in 3 or 4 years from now, this 51% will go up to 55%. Now, any national player that is desirous of getting a national reach, necessarily it will have to have regional languages also in the palette, in what they have to offer. So at least they have to be present in at least 6 to 8 languages. And each of the languages, they need to be present in they need to have at least 8 to 10 content pieces, either in the form of films or in the form of web series. So even if you look at the number of content, especially from South, the number of films that's on OTT, it's largely from South, because South celebrates films. But of course, the number of hours of web series that's created from the regional language is far fewer. That's simply because we have still not understood the narrative or understood the treatment of how to do a good quality web series. So you can count with your fingers the number of good quality web series that we have created. We are masters in creating good quality films, but we have still not mastered the art of creating web series. So that's a learning process that we are in. But the business is still, the category still is in a very nascent stage. It will grow. If it has to grow, then regional has to become national.
Sathyajith, as these platforms are moving to regions where connectivity is more a luxury than is rare, what are the kind of challenges that you're looking at? What are some unique opportunities and challenges in these regions?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Sathyajith here. To answer this question, I'll have to just mention that initially I used to look at it from the center downwards when I was working with Hotstar, but now I'm at the other end. I'm in Kerala looking after Manorama Max, and from that point when I speak, in Kerala it's a very different scene, because internet penetration itself is at 85%. So the number of people who are able to access OTT content is huge out there. And they have been engaging on a daily basis, as in when we did this came out as a result of a multiple surveys, that our OTT was actually engaging the number of people on a daily basis for maximum number of time across OTTs, including pan-India OTTs in Kerala. So that is because we are focusing on regional content, and the content that is being created is very localized, and that is the reason the kind of engagement that I'm talking about is happening as well. So I do believe that for the end user, it is just about entertainment that he feels comfortable with, and it is about giving him content he does not feel threatened when he sees the content, that will I understand, will I be able to get all the words, nothing like that. It needs to be as local as possible, and that is what makes what we call regional today click in India today.
Mahek, if you could speak about the audience, how are the consumer preferences different when you're moving into these regions, and how should OTT platforms adapt their content accordingly?
Hi everyone. So I would say, if I go back to the consumer research we've done in the last 2-3 years, what we've noticed is, of course, like Divya said, urban markets, metro markets especially, have plateaued in a way, right? But interestingly, we saw another cohort being unlocked. So far, it's the younger demographic that has always led the way for OTT, but we've also seen 35 plus audiences sort of opening up to the world of OTT, and I think we should trace it back to what happened 2 years back, right? When COVID hit us. It's been 2 years, we're out of it, but that has very solid ripple effects which will continue to shape the way we consume media in general, right? So that was the audience that was always TV first, and in the absence of fresh content, they opened up their worlds to OTT, right? The other thing that happened was, especially if we talk about the non-metro counterparts, there was a reversal, right? There was a reverse migration. There were people that went back home, and they took their digital habits back home, right? So two things happened. There's usually, I think, we're plagued by one hypothesis that it's the urban metro markets, or rather the regional markets, that respond better to regional content. I have a counterpoint to that. Because the urban markets, the metro markets are hungry for good content. So it doesn't matter what the source of that great content is. If it is coming from a regional platform, amazing. We're consuming languages not just that are native to us, but we're also consuming in languages that are not Indian at all. So from that standpoint, I think for the metro markets, for the regional players, I think it's about creating good content. It doesn't matter. As a Gujarati native, let's say, I am consuming all kinds of Indic languages. It doesn't matter that it's native to me or not. For the regional or the non-metro markets per se, I think there's again a very interesting, there are two sides of the coin. One is, like he said, relatability of that content. The story is in my language, the characters look like me, so it's extremely relatable. I enjoy it. But another part of it is, regional OTTs today are also giving a chance for that audience to consume aspirational content in their languages, right? So a Turkish drama, a Korean drama being translated or dubbed into their own languages is also a window to the world for them. So it's not just about giving them what's relatable, it's also meeting them somewhere where their aspirations lie. So I would say it's a balance that regional OTTs will have to strike.
That's very interesting. You spoke about relatability. Anup, I want to ask you, considering the linguistic differences and how different every region in India is, how do you ensure authenticity and genuineness when you are creating content in these languages?
I spent a large amount of time in television. I spent more than 2 decades in television. And it's a very recent shift that I've made where I've started creating content for the OTT space and movies. Now, for me, it was a huge relief when I moved into the space for the simple reason, while in television, I had to create content which was very, very cliched, mother-in-law, daughter-in-law problem, and husband beating the wife, domestic violence, and so there was a certain character arc that we strictly had to follow because of the massification of content that television is used to. So there was I was looking forward to this journey in creating great content in streaming platforms. But obviously, yes, there are challenges that national players in the streaming platforms sitting in the regional market we encounter. There is a huge scope for creating regional content which is very rooted, which is very native, but unfortunately that is not happening. Why is it not happening? I would say there are 3 reasons for it. One, the national players will have to start empowering the regional teams to decide. For instance, I've been working on one particular web series concept. We've been developing it for the last 1.5, 2 years with a local team. And now suddenly they've reverted back to me saying, look, people in Bombay still have to decide. So I don't see any reason somebody who doesn't understand the nuances or the sensitivity of the regional market, sitting there, how will they decide and what is the requirement here? That's point number 1. So if you want native and rooted content in the streaming platforms, I would only request all the national players to please give regional teams, empower them to take decisions and move on and create good quality content. Second is, I think the other reason is, I can tell you various instances. In fact, I'm just doing a film with Nayanthara, and I was telling one of the platforms that we are planning to release the film on Mattu Pongal. So this particular person from Bombay called me and asked me, who has to take the decision, what is Mattu Pongal and when is Mattu Pongal, right? So that's the problem. The problem, if the industry has to grow, is this. You have to have the right team, you have to have the right people. To a large extent, I think, even in television, I felt we do not have the right writers. Now, all the stories in television that is supposed to be about women were written by men. So that was one of the problems I faced there. But in streaming platforms, I think the other problem that we are having is that we should try and source good quality writers from the hinterland. We are not making any great initiative towards that. Each platform should have a writer's room. And this writer's room should not necessarily be people stationed in the city. I've always wondered, even I've said this when I launched Colors Tamil, is, I should not have the head office of Colors Tamil in Chennai. It should actually be in Coimbatore or Madurai. Why is it that it is stationed out of Chennai? Because for our benefit and for our ease of operation, we keep it out of Chennai. So we need to go and get across, source the talent from the unreached places. You will have good people in Madurai, Coimbatore, or in Kerala, for instance, there will be good people in Kanyanad. You know, there is a director called Senna Hegde who is only directing, you won't believe, from Kanyanad. So you have to go and identify such talent, and only then we can create good, authentic, native stories. Otherwise, you know, we will have convent-educated decision makers creating content which is only for urban market and actually not getting the right content mix. That's my point of view.
No, that's about creating content, but once that's done, how do you promote that content? Divya, would you like to talk about it from your experience?
Okay, before I comment on that, I would like to contradict one thing that you just said, Chandrasekhar. That's not true. We don't take all the decisions from Bombay. The local teams are empowered. In Z5, at least, it used to happen like that. But having said that, moving on to the fact that how do we market? Again, in marketing, I would say at Alt, at Z5 also, we did have very local-based teams, you know, because it's not possible for a single person to know every culture, every nuance. It is an extremely diverse country. The dialect changes from every few kilometers, literally. From where I come, UP, the dialect changes every, 120, 130 kilometers. People are different, they're talking different, the culture is different, the tradition is different. So in Z5, we had local native teams that used to actually come back to us and tell us, and there's no harm in me asking, but why are you recommending, what is the festival? Because honestly, I don't know. And I rely on the local teams to tell me what is right and what is wrong. And when people in the central teams do not rely on marketing or an advice, we've had global fiascos like Coke had in countries, right? So you market looking at the fact that there are going to be certain days that you really, really, truly want to hit the home content with. There are certain on-ground activities that you want to do. Of course, the media buyers and planners are there to ensure that you're doing the right through TV, etc. But I wouldn't say that the marketing for regional content is going to be any different from marketing a Hindi or an English piece of content. It all depends on what is the genre. So if it is youth, I will still go and tap the young. In that area, I will speak in their language and I'll figure out where they are. So if it is a college content, I will still go to colleges if it is in Tamil, or if it is in Bengali, or if it is in Hindi, it doesn't matter, because that's where the young are. They are in the clubs, they're in the malls, they're in the cafes, and they're in the colleges. That doesn't really change. The strategy and the touch points don't really change. They just get fine-tuned, right? In terms of days, in terms of how they consume. So for example, Bangalore, the pubs might be shutting down at 12 or 1. Bombay pubs are open till 3, and in Chennai might shut down by 10. Those are the finer tweaks you do, right? But the rest, the young remains the young. So women, if it's a woman-oriented show, I'll still go to magazines because women are still reading magazines. I'll still do TV shows to advertise, and I'll still go to the salons and the parlors, and I'll still possibly do RWA activities to get to women, right? The mindset marketing remains the same. It's only the local tweaks you end up doing. That's what I wanted to say.
And beyond original content, dubbed and subtitled content is also helping the content reach much beyond the home state, right? Sathyajith, from your example, if you could tell us, how are you using it to reach markets beyond just Kerala?
So Manorama Max is a completely exclusively Malayalam OTT, but we recognize the opportunity for it to spread beyond Malayalam in the COVID phase. So we had begun subtitling all our content initially in English, and now we are even considering other languages as well. Because most of the people are interested in the Malayalam content and they're engaging with it from a perspective of a story happening in Kerala. They're not, they may be identifying it from the perspective of the characters that are in the shows and stuff, but they are understanding it from the perspective of it happening in Kerala itself. We don't really need, we've not started the language dubbing in voice because that we feel takes away from the content. It does not make the content as original as it seems when you watch it in any other language with the lip syncing also happening in that language. However, when the subtitles are in multiple languages, people are able to see it as content that is happening in Kerala and they are engaging with it, and there is no, there doesn't seem to be a limitation of it being from our region or anything like that, because people are watching most of the content, which is about 90% of the content on our platform is of content that is originated from Kerala itself. So in that sense, that is getting consumed from other places because of the subtitling. We've not gone into voice.
Does subtitling also help you reach the diaspora?
Subtitling also helps us reach the diaspora because most of the diaspora do not know to read the language. So subtitling it in English helps the Malayali across the globe also consume it better, yes.
Mahek, while we speak about the growth of OTT, it's very important to speak about how brands are making the most of this growth. Could you speak about how brands are reaching this audience through regional OTT?
Sure. So I think looping from the point that he just spoke of, the diaspora, right? You mentioned that. I think one of the most interesting ways that brands can make use of regional OTTs shows in general is reaching out to audiences that are elsewhere, right? Not in the country. And that's especially interesting for categories like, for example, spice brands. There are very, very ethnic, locally rooted brands. They make great use of platforms like this to reach out to audiences that are sitting there, because watching shows, content in your own language is a great way to use, sort of connect with the roots. In fact, I've also heard that a lot of parents, a lot of grandparents, when they visit their children, let's say in America, in the UK, they urge their grandchildren to sit with them and watch that content. So it's a way that they bond as well. So it's a great way for perhaps an F&B brand that's local, rooted, to talk to that audience and create a market there, right? Another thing very closely tied to that is languages evoke very deep emotions, right? It triggers very deep cultural triggers. So if a brand is looking to, let's say, become or sort of ritualize its use in a household, for example, or if its ambition is to become a part of the consumer culture, so then there's nothing better, I would say, than picking up a regional OTT, because when I hear someone speak in my language, it's going to, that message is going to resonate with me so much stronger than it would otherwise. So those are the two ways that I think brands can really, really leverage regional OTTs to get their message across.
What about national brands? Are they also using it?
So how I usually look at this problem is, and that's something that we recommend to our clients also, that when you're approaching regional OTT, you don't come as a national or a local brand. It depends on your challenge at the moment. So is my challenge or is my objective regional or national is the question, right? As an example, there's this channel called Bhadipa, which is the Bharatiya Digital Party, which is a case study in Maharashtrian regional language. It's amazing. And that goes to show, that's a testimony to how regional content doesn't just resonate with people sitting in non-metro markets, it's resonating with everyone. So Scalar, right, which is a national edtech brand, by all standards, had a very specific regional problem. So they realized that Maharashtra, when it comes to engineering degrees, there's a culture of hoarding degrees, but they end up suffering after the degree is achieved. A lot of them end up being jobless because there's more focus on degree hoarding than skill building. And Scalar in that market wanted to sort of build association with skill building rather than just degree giving, right? So they created this show with Bhadipa called Be Rojgar, which is actually BE Rojgar, so Bachelor's of Engineering Rojgar. And that was just a simple story based in the heartland, 2-3 friends, navigating joblessness after their engineering degrees. And it helped the brand solve a very specific surgical challenge in that region. And I think So therefore, it doesn't matter what your scale of operation is, it'll boil down to your objective in that market.
What an interesting example. I'm sorry, audience, we don't have time for audience questions. We have the break after this. You all can meet our panelists during the lunch break to answer your questions. Thank you so much for this insightful conversation. We really enjoyed hearing all your examples and stories. All right. Thank you so much.